It still remains possible under our present system for electors to substitute their own whims for the will of the majority of the people of their state. This situation has not affected yet the outcome of any election, although the switch of a few thousand votes in key states in 1960 might have given a few electors the power to control the outcome. And let me say, Mr. Chairman, that was a distinct possibility, and it was a possibility that was discussed even before the election that was held in November of 1960 and during the critical and crucial hours after the polls closed. I know that it was then discussed by some who were opposed in some of the southern states to, even though President Kennedy won those states, to withhold their votes and thereby withhold a greater number of votes than were actually withheld at that time, and thereby throw this election into the Congress. And I think that would have been most unfortunate.
We'll reconvene our session this morning. Our first witness is the distinguished colleague from New York. We're honored, as busy as he is, that he'd take time to let us have the benefit of his wisdom and experience for our record in studying this important matter of electoral reform. I know very few people in the country, if any, who have had the experience that the Senator from New York has in a wide variety of executive and legislative capacities. And Senator Kennedy, we're honored to have you with us this morning.
I thank the chairman. It was, to hear him say all those nice things, it was worthwhile coming already. I'm glad to have the opportunity to appear before your committee this morning to discuss Senate Resolution 58 and other proposed amendments relating to the way in which we elect a president and a vice president. I want to say first that I fully support Senate Resolution 58. The changes it would make will help to guarantee the undisrupted operation of our electoral process over the long run. It would abolish the office of the elector and thereby ensure that the persons who receive the greatest number of votes for president and vice president in each state will automatically receive the electoral votes of the state. And it would provide an improved system for electing the president and the vice president when no person has a majority of the electoral votes cast for one or both of these offices. Finally, this proposal would rectify inadequacies in the way in which we now meet the problem of the death of the president-elect or vice president-elect after the election and before the inauguration. It has been suggested by some that if we are going to invoke the unusual process of amending the Constitution to accomplish only the changes contained in S.J. Res. 58, we might as well not bother. I heartily disagree, Mr. Chairman. Still being discussed at that time as to whether some of the electors could be held back and thereby a few individuals having control over who should be president and vice president of the United States. It would be tragic for us as a nation if such a situation ever did come to pass. The original historical reasons for this freedom on the part of the electors have long since ceased to be relevant. And it is time our procedures were amended to conform to our practices. There is no reason in contemporary America for the existence of an elector who has discretion to thwart the wishes of the people of his state. The potential injury which adheres to the continued allowance of the Constitution of discretion on the part of individual electors is great enough to justify a constitutional amendment on this point alone. And the other changes which S.J. Res. 50 go to the council. candidate who earns them. I believe that our Constitution is a document which we must conserve, which we must change only where change is imperative. Its continued vitality, in my judgment, rests on our continued reluctance to tamper with it. The changes proposed in S.J. Res. 58 are essential. More radical changes in the electoral process are, in my judgment, neither necessary nor advisable. I thank the chairman and the senator from Nebraska.
In turn, thank you for the fine contribution you made to our record. You have time to submit to a question or two.
That's fine.
Please. I particularly appreciated the emphasis which you placed on the importance and the relative merit and impact that the various plans would have on the two-party system, the splinter vote aspect, plus the evidence which you submitted concerning the times which, if the other plans had been adopted, a minority vote really would have elected the president, and we don't have to look any further back than 1960 to see, as you pointed out, such occasions. Inasmuch as we have not had specific opportunities when a vote, one or two votes, would have been of impact, I trust that you feel that nevertheless the possibility in the future, as you say this was thought of in 1960, that the possibility that this might happen, thus throw the nation into a turmoil, would be the overriding factor in your feeling that it's not worth taking a continued chance on, and that those that say, well, it just hasn't happened in the past, so why change it, thus should not be listened to.
Well, I would point out, for instance, in 1960, President Kennedy won by 100 electoral votes, but only by approximately 100,000 popular votes. But New Jersey, and I haven't looked at the figures lately, but New Jersey, President Kennedy won by, I think, about 7,500 votes. In Missouri, he won by approximately the same, about 8,000 votes. Illinois by about 7,500 votes. And I think Texas by about 25,000 votes. You could easily, from that, putting together, and those are just 3 or 4 of the states, but putting together a combination of those states, you could easily have brought it down to the fact that he could have won, or Vice President Nixon could have won by 10 or 15 electoral votes.
To be general agreement of all of the plans that the historic development of our country, which has found the role of the elector totally different than that, and the reasons for it changing, so that the situations no longer exist that were anticipated by our founding fathers, and right now we're trying to get enough people behind one plan so that we can accomplish at least this one important aspect that all of us agree needs to be done, to take the individual will of the elector out of the picture. Now,
well, you've had that experience before, I think.
yes, sir.
Getting everybody behind one plan, but you did remarkably well before.
Well,
I'm
you're
sure
very
you'll do it
thoughtful. It's not an easy job, as the senator knows. May I ask, referring to the situation that existed in some of the southern states, the present proposal would not mandate a state to include the names of the candidates for president and vice president of the major political parties. So you could still have a state submit Sam Smith as an independent electors, therefore. Does this worry you any?
Yes, it does. It causes me some concern.
The Attorney General pointed out that this would be true, but still the votes would have to be cast for this one individual. They couldn't be used to barter back and forth between the Republicans.
Well, I think it's an
and
improvement. I think that we eliminate that possibility, but I'm still, what you've described, I think is still a problem and should be explored by the committee.
Now, one final question, and then imagine my colleague from Nebraska would like to have a similar opportunity. One of the aspects about some of the other proposals is the fact that this present system sort of discourages those.
First, I don't think that there is that much discouragement at the state level in a
counted.
I think the latter. I've answered a question of the chairman of the committee as to whether it would be the feeling of the candidate that he would be so discouraged in a particular state that and the individual so discouraged that he wouldn't participate in an election, as I understood that was the question. And I said that based on my experience, that the candidates would make that kind of an effort in every one of the 50 states in any given year. That they each, whether Republican or Democrat, all felt now they had an opportunity to carry any one of the states.
Does the Senator from Nebraska have other questions? Please feel free.
Okay, thank you.
Was I right in my interpretation of the chairman?
Yes, we've had a trend of discussion, and I thought only fair to get your opinion on this particular matter, because it's been one that's been expressed upon, talked about by most all the witnesses. What about a constitutional amendment which would provide congressional representation for the district?
Well, I would be in favor of that. I think the home rule, as you point out, is more basic. I'd like to see home rule enacted, but I would also strongly favor representation within Congress. Now, whether it would affect the passage of this particular amendment, I think that the committee would have to determine that. I think that the most important thing really is to deal with the subject matter, the basic subject matter that this committee is taking up. I would like to have, if it's possible, included in that some representation within Congress by the District of Columbia, but I wouldn't want to adversely affect the enactment of this amendment either in Congress or across the country.
Excuse me, Senator from Nebraska.
I have no questions.